every animal there is an internal urge. Adding to this, there are changes in the environment. So the internal urge and the environmental changes force the animal to develop new needs. To satisfy these new needs, it may become necessary for the animal. It may become necessary for the animal to put a particular part of the body or a particular structure into more frequent use. More frequent use. Consequently, the structure develops better. This is one possibility. Or to satisfy these needs, a particular structure may be put into less frequent use, or it may not be used at all. Therefore, the structure degenerates. So, this acquired character is inherited generation after generation, resulting in a change in the organism and ultimately the formation of a new species. So this is the summary of Lamarckism. Now, in order to support his idea of use and disuse of organs and the inheritance of acquired characters, Lamarck gives several examples. Let us examine two of the most familiar examples, one for the idea of use and one for the idea of disuse. For the theory of use, the example given by Lamarck is the appearance of long neck in giraffes. According to Lamarck, earlier giraffes had a neck of normal length like any other mammal, this set of giraffes with normal neck had an internal urge, that they want to undergo changes. Added to this, there was an environmental change, and this environmental change was in the form of competition from other herbivores. So giraffes started facing shortage of food at the ground level. So a new need arose. A new need arose in giraffes, that is to obtain food from taller plants. For obtaining food from the taller plants, giraffes had to stretch their neck. So they started stretching the neck, and at the same time they started stretching the forelimbs. So stretching the neck and stretching the forelimbs enabled them to reach taller plants. So this character of stretching the neck and stretching the forelimbs acquired by giraffes was passed on from generation to generation. Therefore, slowly over generations, length of the neck increased, and length of the forelimbs increased, and that is how present day giraffes have longer necks and longer forelimbs. This is one familiar example that Lamarck gives in support of his idea of the theory of use of organs. Similarly, for the theory of disuse, he has given several examples, and one familiar example is the absence of limbs in snakes. Again, according to Lamarck, earlier snakes had both forelimbs and hind limbs like all other reptiles. So they had an internal urge, they wanted to change. This internal urge was supported by an environmental change. What was the environmental change here? Increased predation. Snakes were being caught by several birds, so they had to escape from their predators. In the act of escaping from the predators, snakes found that the limbs are impediments. They could not escape easily. Instead, they disused the limbs, started crawling on the ground and get into crevices to escape from their enemies. So they started disusing the limbs. And Lamarck says this act of disusing the limbs over a long period of time reduced the limbs generation after generation, and finally the limbs disappeared. Finally the limbs disappeared. So this character of disusing the limbs continued generation after generations, and finally there were snakes without limbs. So this is the example he gives for the theory of disuse. However, we must remember that this idea of use and disuse does not hold good in all examples. Moreover, experimental evidence also goes against Lamarckism. A biologist by name August Weismann conducted an experiment wherein he cut off the tail of rats, allowed them to breed generation after generation for more than 20 generations, and he found that even in the 21st generation, the rats had a tail of normal length. That means the absence of tail, considering it as an acquired character, did not get inherited. So Weismann's experiment experimentally disproved the idea of use and disuse, and he proposed the idea of what is known as germplasm. So his theory is known as germplasm theory. Germplasm theory, according to which acquired characters do not affect the germplasm. It is only the germplasm that continues generation after generation. Acquired characters affect only the somatoplasm, that is body cells. Therefore, such characters are not inherited. Only characters that affect the germplasm are inherited. So with that, the Lamarck's theory is totally disproved.